I think Afghanistan real estate prices come down now. Good option.
There was a WhatsApp group, WhatsApp chat saying 5-bedroom home available for 40,000 rupees or something like that.
Buy one, take one also, I guess.
Hi, Arvind. Long time no see.
Arvind has got butterflies in his stomach now.
Hi, Sushila.
Yeah.
Even I don't see Arvind.
Manjunath, hi.
You don't look around the corner.
What, Arvind, you got butterflies in your stomach or in your garden now?
These are the butterflies being caught by my wife.
Not come to your stomach, right?
Nani, I know. I have the different butterflies when I see Indian cricket.
100 for 4, I think. Huh?
Something. Same old scene, same old story.
We'll wait for them to get angry.
But we can't help watching it. That's the problem.
Every time I watch, a wicket goes, so I stop watching.
No, I have a theory, Vinod. When I don't watch, hopefully they'll play well.
President, 7:30.
Yeah, just about.
Vinod, just a small request.
Good evening, everybody. I call this the 10th meeting of Rotary Bangalore Cantonment to order. May I request all of you to observe 1 minute of silence for world peace. Thank you very much. Once again, a very good evening to each one of you. Thank you for joining this evening's meeting. Wonderful to see all of you. A very, very warm welcome to our guest speaker today, Ram Chandnani. Thank you, Ram, for making time to join us today. Looking forward to hear you speak. Like we said, most of us here are real estate experts, more than investors. So we'd like to hear your opinion about what really is happening in the real estate side. Wonderful to have you with us. Welcome from Rotary Bangalore Cantonment. Also, welcome to Manjunath and Susan. Welcome back, Manjunath and Susan. Good to have you with us. Any other guests today? All right.
My brother-in-law might join along the way.
Wonderful. Do ask him to say hi when he joins us. All right. Week has been pretty good from the in terms of projects. Importantly, we kicked off a new chapter of ADRAG. As you know, many of you know, ADRAG is the Alzheimer's Disease Rotary Action Group, which was formed in India under the leadership of Sabharwal, and an ADRAG group of close to 25 members was formed. And this is the first in India. So we have taken the next step by creating the Chennai chapter. So now we're going to expand the footprint of ADRAG all across India, and we have a goal to have at least 10 such chapters. So the first of those chapters was kicked off in Chennai. We had a meeting along with Rotary Madras Coromandel, and our district governor Fazal Mahmood, our zonal governor, our assistant governor, and many of the Rotarians did join the meeting. It was a wonderful initiative. It's a great initiative for the district also, that we have kicked off a Rotary Action Group for Alzheimer's, and Rotary Bangalore Cantonment is the lead club. Wonderful initiative, and thanks to Sabharwal and team for taking up this initiative. We also have kicked off our project on the vocational services at Navjeevan Nilaya. We kicked off a beautician and tailoring course today. Today, I understand, is the first day of the course.
Yesterday.
Yeah, 4 people have joined for each of these programs, the beautician and tailoring, and I think more are going to join over the next few days. Wonderful initiative. I think a lot of work went into planning this. Arvind and Venkat, I think, put a lot of effort in getting this kicked off. This may be the last such course we're going to have at Navjeevan Nilaya, after which we'll be back to probably doing this at RHL. So all best wishes to Arvind and team for getting this off the ground. Also, I wanted to give a reminder on the newspaper collection that we are doing for the vocational project for old age people. We need to collect lots more newspapers. You might have seen that we have created some posters, which is available now at RHL. I request each of you to collect one of these posters and put it up in your community. If you're staying in an apartment block, put it up there, or give it to one of the apartment block nearby your place, so that we can collect as much papers. More the newspaper we collect, more the benefit to the how much we're going to impact the people who are creating these paper bags. So I would like you to collect the posters. If you need, I can get it sent over to you through Murthy or somebody. If you can't come over to RHL, please let us know. But I request you to each one to collect one of those posters and put it up in the community nearby. Also, the Bosch program has kicked off softly. We're having a joint training program, soft skill training, along with Bosch. And we have kicked off the training. I think that's happening at this point of time virtually. About 12 to 15 people already on the program, if I understand right. So this program has already taken off. And I think next month onwards, or this month onwards, we'll be actually having the program at RHL. So another great initiative that's been kicked off from RCPC. On Saturday, we are going to Rotary Club of Nittur. That is close to 100 kilometers away from here. It's a rural town where we're going to go and explore what kind of projects we can do to impact the people at the Nittur. Already about 10 people from RCPC have signed up for this visit. Thank you all. If any more interested in joining us, it'll be a nice one-day trip. We can go have some good time seeing the village and seeing what we can do to impact those people out there. So that much from my side. May I now request Club Secretary Nanda to make the club announcements.
Well, as far as the activities of the last week is concerned, the President has already elaborated on the projects that we have been handling. So I wouldn't like to touch upon that. I would just like to mention that the International Services Committee and the Vocational Services Committee had their second meeting of this year. The International Committee met on the 27th of August and the Vocational Services Committee met on the 28th of August. Now, as far as birthdays and anniversaries that are being celebrated this week, Rotary Appadurai celebrates his birthday today. And Radhi and Bharat Bale celebrate their birthdays on the 4th of September. As for the aunts, Sandhya Mohan celebrates her birthday on the 8th of September. And for the wedding anniversaries, Meryl Mota and Patricia Mota celebrate their wedding anniversary tomorrow. And Al Fernandez and Deepika celebrate their wedding anniversary on the 8th of September. Wishing all, on behalf of the club, wishing all of them the very best in their health and happiness. Now, for the programs of the forthcoming week, the next weekly meeting will be held on Thursday, the 9th September. Arjuna Wadi and Olympian Nisha Millet, who was a participant at the Sydney Olympics and now is a swimming coach and runs her own academy, will be addressing us. The details of the program will be circulated shortly. As the President said, as part of the Sahyoga program and to discuss the possibility of doing certain community and vocational services projects jointly, a visit to the Rotary Club of Nittur is scheduled for this Saturday, the 4th of September. Members who are interested in joining the group may contact Rotarian Sadashiv. The third board meeting of the year will be held on Sunday, the 5th of September at 11:30 a.m. at Bangalore Club. The meeting will be followed by a lunch that is being hosted by the immediate past president, Rotarian Ravi Narasimhan and his aunt Indrani. Well, that's the announcements for the week. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Nanda. So without further ado, I'd like to get our Rotarian Shiv Kumar to introduce our guest speaker, Ram Chandani. Shiv?
Thank you, President Vinod, and good evening, Rotarians, and guests who are participating in this meet. We have a very interesting session today, and I think we already know the topic is Bangalore's boom in real estate and its future. You know, I read somewhere that real estate is an imperishable asset, ever increasing in value. It is the most solid security that human ingenuity has devised. It is the basis of all security and about the only indestructible security. So with that type of landscape, in Bangalore, real estate, and somebody in corporate world talks about, it is Ram is synonymous with real estate and is with CBRE. It's my proud privilege and pleasure to introduce to you Ram Chandani, who's the managing director of CBRE, who's going to talk to us about this topic today. You're all aware CBRE is a global Fortune 500 and a Standard & Poor company with offices across the world, about more than 100,000 people. And Ram leads the transaction services and advisory practices in India. And he is a veteran in CBRE. You know, I mean, I've been in corporate world for about 4 decades, but ever since I've been knowing in Bangalore, everybody knows Ram, and I've had the privilege of interacting with him as well. So Ram leads the advisory and transaction services in India across various verticals of offices, land, industrial, and warehousing. With about 3 decades of real estate rich experience, Ram has curated, I could say, one of the largest transactions for corporates in India. He is a veteran, a real estate expert, is well known for his deep and I would say very sticky relationship with occupiers, corporate barons, and also is a very prolific speaker. I read somewhere, Ram, that people decide within 8 seconds of getting into a house whether they want to buy it or not. I don't know how true it is, but we are all not corporate honchos, but we want to be a real estate player in some form because real estate is money. So we would like to hear from you what is the future of Bangalore, because pandemic has upset many industries and real estate volatility in that particular industry has been pretty steep. How is it going to, what is the outlook? What is the outlook for corporates? What is the real estate retailers like us? What is your mantra to invest or not to invest? We would love to hear from you. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, it's my pleasure and privilege to present to you, Ram. Over to you, my friend.
Thank you, Shiv, and thank you, everyone. Great catching up with you. I'm not going to bore you all. I'll try and keep it as interesting as possible. I think we need to be fortunate that we live in Bangalore. I know a lot of people may not necessarily agree with the traffic, with the congestion, and the way the city has grown and expanded. But I would truly say we are fortunate to live in a city like Bangalore. It is the largest commercial office market in the country. One good part is that over the last few decades, we've really seen the growth of Bangalore. And one of the reasons why it is a global city is purely because of all of us, the people, and the people who want to continue to come into the city of Bangalore. The corporates who have come in to set up shop in Bangalore are because of the talent that's available, and the talent has relocated from different parts of India into the city to make it their own city. I think what we also need to be proud of is that 37% of the global capability centers in India are headquartered out of Bangalore. It is the startup capital of India, which no doubt we can't take away. And obviously, literacy rates, the city has really catered to creating multiple business opportunity and jobs for people. With the entire corporate ecosystem of people coming, occupiers coming to set up operations in Bangalore, that has created multifold avenues for businesses to thrive out of the city of Bangalore. The largest office market, as I mentioned, is Bangalore, not only from an absorption perspective, and by absorption means the quantum of take-up of space year on year. The largest quantum of grade A office space in the country of 700 million square feet across India, around 176 million square feet is in Bangalore, which is, again, a remarkable number. When we talk of real estate, we bucket it into various asset classes. The office asset class is a predominant asset class, and 30% of Bangalore's office is now owned by institutional players, which is very interesting. By institutional players, I mean by funds, private funds, or REITs that own it. The others are still owned by traditional developers, and a lot of it is also strata sold to individual investors who could either own floors in a building, who could own an independent building, or could own part of a floor of a building from an office perspective. The residential market in Bangalore is another big asset class. With the influx of people coming to the city, we've seen a huge growth of the residential market. We've seen developers continue to build grade A quality product in the city. It's not just apartments. We've seen villa communities, villaments, and even the plotted development schemes that have taken place in Bangalore as an investment opportunity. We also saw a growth in the retail sector with the people coming in to live in the city, a big opportunity from a retail perspective. The evolution of malls being developed in India, and some world-class malls we have from a scale size perspective in Bangalore. We saw a huge growth in the industrial logistics sector, and that's again in the evolution from traditional historical warehouses, and earlier they were not called warehouses, they were called godowns, which you'll be familiar with that terminology, to large industrial and warehousing parks. The government has been forthcoming in attracting investment into the state. The government had set up multiple micro locations like the EPIP zone, the Electronic City micro market, large industrial pockets like Hoskote, Pina, which are also being transformed. Whitefield historically was a manufacturing hub, and it's seen the transformation that Whitefield's gone through. So the city has obviously grown, and it's one of the largest city from a square kilometer perspective. And the city has really grown from locations that you're familiar with all the way to micro locations like Hoskote. So from a square kilometer perspective, this is one of the largest circular cities that we've seen across the country. From a growth opportunity perspective, being the largest office market in the country, big opportunity on investing in commercial real estate. The influx of people coming to work in these environments, into these organizations, a big opportunity on the residential sector. The industrial and warehousing sector will continue to grow with the influx of e-com and manufacturing that's happening in India. There are a lot of global organizations who are looking at assembling and manufacturing. China Plus One strategy is big on the cards, and Bangalore is a big location for that. And with the evolution of tech, e-com is again big in a city of Bangalore with the kind of people that live in and reside in the city. The retail business has grown because the spending patterns of people have changed. They want accessibility to good quality shopping experiences and food and other activities to enjoy and have a holistic view on from a retail experience perspective. And obviously, with technology comes data centers and other ancillary businesses. Co-living, co-working is it's an expansion of the office business, but co-living is an opportunity for younger people who want to live in shared accommodation and shared environments. So these are the various asset classes, and we're seeing growth across the sector. Obviously, the pandemic has changed things for us across the globe and across India. India is no different. We had predicted that there are 5 key elements that would change the world by 2030. This was a report that we released in 2019, early 2019, in March 2019. And the 5 key pillars were demographics, which is the changing environment, the changing next generation, the I would say Generation Z of people coming into the workforce to be to work in professional environments. We spoke about cities, and cities, how the transformation of cities will really evolve in terms of becoming super modern going forward. We spoke about infrastructure as a key element for a sustainable growth of a city. We spoke about climate and sustainability from an overall environment sustainability perspective. And we also spoke about where the talent will come from. So these were the key elements that we really spoke on. And we've seen COVID really change some of these and accelerate some of these expectations in terms of work from anywhere, which was predicted. And COVID has really proved that you can deliver remotely pretty much from most parts of the country or anywhere in the world. You can sit on a beach so long as you had an internet connection and still do business. Obviously, productivity levels will vary depending from the kind of work you deliver. But you can literally work from anywhere. And that's proved with the COVID. Obviously, buying a home has become a lot more important because some of the younger people who were living in shared accommodation or paying guest, as we are all familiar with the term, got shooted off by their landlords or the owners, saying it's not safe to have these younger people. They could create more problems for me if they contracted the disease, etc., the virus. So some of the pain that happened there. So obviously the importance of buying a home has dramatically gone up. Obviously retail went through its share of pain with malls not being operational. Some of those experiences, whether it's watching a cinema or going to a mall because the malls were shut down, went through their share of pain. Pretty much only essential services were open. And so the retail has seen a share of pain in the last 15, 16 months. But we're all social animals as human beings. We want to interact with people. We want to go out and go through an experience, whether it's to go get a meal, to go obviously do some shopping for whatever our needs are. And obviously with the GST implementations, the evolution of e-commerce has created more demand for warehousing space, from last mile delivery to big box retail, big box warehouses. So these are the 4-5 asset classes that we're seeing growth and will continue to see growth. There has been big discussions about co-living. Is it sustainable, not sustainable? Student housing, is it sustainable, not sustainable? Bangalore being a large city with quite a few universities and colleges, prominent colleges in India, and we're starting to see a lot of private universities look at India. The healthcare sector has seen huge influx with COVID across India, and we're seeing a lot more healthcare operators look at India, whether it's hospital chains expanding with the sale of, with Manipal acquiring Columbia, which the names you're familiar with, and with a lot more hospital chains looking at expanding to cater to the needs of people living in the city. So these are the 4-5 sectors that we will continue to see growth. So the big question is, what's the opportunity for an individual investor like yourselves? You could buy a home, but the question is, who do you buy a home from? I bought a home previously and the developer has delayed delivery of my home. And that's $1 million question, saying, do I go contract a home, buy an under construction asset? Do I take a risk, or buy a ready home? Who do I trust who can deliver? Because even some of the larger developers have delayed projects, have had funding challenges, and have not given me the quality that they really promised. So I think the key differentiator is when you look at the residential sector, and depending on the need, a lot of people said, I'll buy a home to live in, which is great, or I want to upgrade my home to move from a 3 BHK to a 4 BHK or a 2 BHK to a 3 BHK. Some people saying, I want to invest in a home because I want my kid's future secured. I want to buy a home for him. Some people said, I purely want to buy it as an investment to buy today. And when the product is ready, I make a quick buck and get out. And obviously the global financial crisis did create some problems in 2008 with the oversupply situation. So the residential sector is a sector that obviously we need to be cautious of. But again, what is our need? If our need is to go ahead and occupy a home to live in, yes, go in all means and buy it. If I was to buy a home to rent out, what is the return is it giving me? Because predominantly residential returns are between 2 to 3%, maybe 3.5% is what you get in terms of residential returns. Okay, the other option from a residential perspective, plotted development is a big thing. And a lot of people obviously bought plots to either build their own homes or purely as an investment. Again, the challenge with real estate, it's not a very liquid asset class. It's not with a click of a button, you can sell a home. Ideally, we want to get to that level with the tech sector on real estate to be able to click the button and then be able to sell a home. A lot of people invested money in plotted developments because huge opportunities say everyone wants a plot because historically we all live in independent homes. So the security of having a plot rather than living in an apartment, which is multi-floored. And so you saw a boom of individuals buying plots either for self-consumption or in gated communities where they could build a home and retain it or hold on to the plot and then eventually sell it at a profit. And we saw Bangalore, like every other city in India, go through that share of boom in terms of capital appreciation. But again, is it a safe environment? Is it worth investing in a plot? What's the future of the micro location? And looking at the demographics of Bangalore, the city has predominantly grown across each location, across every highway. So if you're familiar with the city, you look at the Hosur Road micro market, that's seen a growth. If you look at the Old Madras Road micro market, that quadrant, that's seen a growth. If you look at the South Bangalore, Jayanagar, JP Nagar and beyond, that's seen growth. If you look at the Mysore Road micro market, that's seen a growth. If you look at the Tunku Road corridor, that's seen a growth. And over the last decade, or I would say even last 5 years, you've seen a huge growth in the North Bangalore micro market where the airport is. So the city has really grown sector-wise across all the locations. I wouldn't say it's even, Steven. The percentage of increases have been varying from location to location, but the city has pretty much grown and expanded across all the locations in Bangalore. In some locations, more focused because of industrial growth. In some locations, closer because of the tech growth that we've seen. And these are predominantly the two sectors that we've really seen in these. Obviously, metro connectivity has changed lives. You can jump on a train pretty much from Baipanhalli today all the way to Kingeri, which is fantastic. You will soon be able to jump on a train from South Bangalore, Kanakpura Road, all the way to the airport eventually and beyond. So the city is being transformed, and the good part is the government is looking at connecting the city north, west, east, south, across the board. So you will see better connectivity over the years. From as an advisor to someone who wants to look at real estate, I would say if you're looking at buying a home, buy it in proximity to a metro, because eventually the world will start moving to grow around the metro micro markets from a proximity to public transport perspective. Look at where the clusters of commercial or industrial growth are if you are looking at investing homes. If you were looking at buying commercial real estate, then the question comes on what's the quantum of money you would have to invest. The big opportunity is commercial REITs, where you as an individual investor get to participate in that commercial REIT without physically owning space, but it's like a stock market REIT where you'll be able to invest in commercial real estate without physically owning the space, because the REIT is holding on to a larger portfolio of commercial assets which are rent yielding and good dividend paying. So these are the 4-5 avenues. There are other avenues of looking at buying a small shop in a residential micro market, or buying a floor of office in a smaller neighborhood office building. And these could be challenging because if tenants vacate, then you might worry saying, will I get a replacement tenant, etc. And the other sector is obviously continuing to just buying land. If you had the appetite to buy larger tracts of land and hold on to it, because the capital appreciation is much larger. So these are the 4-5 avenues, depending on what your appetite is and what's the quantum of capital someone would have to invest. Is it difficult to retain tenants? There are no guarantees of retaining tenants on the residential side. There are no guarantees in retaining tenants on the commercial side. There are lock-in periods, and typically a tenant will guarantee you for the lock-in period. But if the guy puts his hands up and says, I've gone belly up, then he's belly up, and he can walk away. He'll let you have his deposit to walk away. And obviously you don't want to get into a situation of going to court and fighting it out. Should you buy in smaller independent residential neighborhoods, standalone buildings, or do you want to buy in larger integrated communities? We've seen a growth moving away from standalone, smaller ground plus 3 buildings which have no amenities, to more going into larger integrated developments which have amenities, access to shopping within the environment, a safer, well-managed development in terms of a larger community. So we've seen that trend happen, and even the opportunity to rent, if you're investing in those communities, is better than standalone buildings, because as you see younger people having kids, etc., the tendency is to move towards some of these communities. That's pretty much a sum up. Shiv, maybe we do a Q&A on specific things that everyone would like to hear.
Thank you, Ram. That's really wonderful. One thing I'm feeling at this point of time after hearing you talk is a little depressed. I'm not sufficiently invested in real estate in Bangalore, and I'm kind of regretting at this point of time.
No, but actually, Vinod, I can tell you, people who invested have made fantastic money. People who haven't invested have complained they haven't made money. Some people who invested and lost money or didn't make enough money also complained, saying the stock market did way better, so we should have put more money in the stock market.
I agree. Wonderful. Let's open out for a few question and answers, please. Please raise your hand. We can. Sudhakar, please go ahead.
That was a nice talk, Ram. But then I think all of us have had a chance to interact with these finance consultants who advise you on where and how and what to do with your money. And I think 99 out of 100 would say that real estate, although historically has been an area where most Indians put some money, but according to them, with all their various calculations, tell us that that is not the ideal place to park money. How do you react to that?
The financial consultant who's advising you, obviously his opportunity is to put money in the financial markets. He's not an expert on real estate. But if you went to a holistic wealth planner, while most of the banking professionals who advise, or the financial consultants, their opportunity is only pretty much exposure on the non-real estate sectors. So they will ask you to put money in bonds, they'll ask you to put money in maybe fixed deposits, maybe ask you to put money in the equity markets or the debt markets. They don't have exposure to real estate. And by recommending you to look at real estate, they are reducing their pie of an opportunity to invest your money into the sector they're familiar with, and because they're going to make money off you investing in real estate.
But they're talking primarily in terms of the kind of returns that real estate has brought to various clients of theirs. And I think it's based on that, not so much about how real estate is performing in the overall scheme of things. But it's
I think very important when you look at real estate, you've got to keep a 10-year horizon. It's not like the equity markets, and you can make some great money on the equity markets if you were to put in money and get out at the right time. You have to have a longer term play on real estate. And as I said, what is the need of investing? The need is to own a home. Yes, of course, you want to buy one home. You want to upgrade a home, of course. Does it make sense to buy residential real estate from a rental perspective? The return on investment is 2.5%. But your capital appreciation is there. So you have to look at not just return on investment, but also capital appreciation. So if you bought a property at, say, 3,500 rupees a square foot, when the developer started constructing, you got to look at what was the selling price when the product was completed, say 2 years or 2.5 years later. The rentals might be low because you're probably getting 30,000 rupees rent for the product you bought. But when you look at 5 years later, if you decided to sell, can I sell in the market? Is there demand for that community to flip that apartment? The rentals may not have gone up, but my capital cost from 3,000 that I paid or 3,500 that I paid, what has it become in 5-7 years? And if you add the capital appreciation and the rental you make, you're getting a risk return between 8 to 15%, depending on the product you bought. And in some cases, much higher.
Thank you.
Other questions?
Vinod, I have a question.
Yeah, please go ahead.
Ram, nice to have heard a cap of overall from commercial and residential. My question is from the commercial space requirement and with regard to working from home, which has come in such a large way during the pandemic. And slowly the interest from a survey showing that people would now prefer to go back to work. So there, according to from what I saw, because of working from home, which has happened in a large way, the demand for commercial space has not been much because of that aspect. And also one of the things I thought was, I experienced was the offices, people who have taken, have got commercial office spaces, their people work from home, but they retain their office spaces to wait and watch. And maybe with this pandemic easing, they may come back. But in terms of requirement for new spaces, etc., do you see a growth in commercial space happening, especially from this angle of working from home and now a change in that? Thank you.
Sure. You're absolutely right, where you see a lot of corporates who have acquired space over the years, and despite the pandemic, have not given away the space. They continue to pay rent. And if you look at all the large developers across India, they've been collecting 95 to 98% of their rents from all their tenants. Some of the tenants who decided to move out where they didn't have the requirement for space, they said, we'll really look at our strategies, have been the smaller and mid-sized companies. But all the large corporates across India have been continuing to pay because their furniture, their servers, all of them exist in that office premises that they furnished or the developers furnished, and they continue to pay rent. Some of them went back and requested for delayed rental payments, some flexibility and negotiations in rent, but pretty much everybody has been paying rents. What you see, and they're not being occupied, you're right. Obviously, with the expectation was to get people back in the first quarter of this year. But with the second wave, that's obviously not happened. The feedback from all the tenants, the larger tenants across India and the global corporates, is that they want to get their employees vaccinated and obviously invite them to come back to work. But you have to keep in mind that the entire ecosystem has to open up, because some of them have kids, the schools haven't opened. Some of them were sending their kids to daycare centers. The daycare centers haven't opened up. So it's the entire ecosystem that has to work. The hesitation, and obviously this experience of working 15, 16 months from home or from back into their hometowns. And a lot of the younger people who don't reside, say, in a Bangalore and came from other parts of India have gone back home. They've given up their rental accommodation, terminated their rents, and moved back. They're saying, why do I have to pay rent? My company is giving me the flexibility to deliver from anywhere. I just need a great internet connection and I can go back from home. I can actually save money. And a lot of people have done that, younger people who were not from the city, who didn't own homes. A lot of the younger people, because they got flexibility to work from anywhere, they went back home. Obviously, this does pose a big question. Will people come back? And most corporates who've been saying they've been very productive in the last 14, 15 months have started seeing a big dip in productivity. Most corporates have started to see that the senior people are having challenges to be able to get enough quality work out of the younger people because they haven't had opportunities to engage with them. There is no opportunity to communicate other than a virtual medium, which is like Zoom, to solve for whatever they're solving on, whether it's the code to develop or whether it's an application to develop, or if it's just a pure BPO where it's data entry, to get some of the younger people to deliver. There have been security breaches that have happened. So these are some big challenges that have happened on remote working. The expectation of corporates, and God willing, no third wave, we've seen some increase in cases, but you will start to see corporates really push between the October-December timeline and more so from the Jan timeline next year to really get a lot more people back into the office. The front office businesses are back in office. Your banking sector, your insurance sector, all of that, people are already back in offices. You will be surprised. They are 100% back in office. It's only the tech sector, which are the pampered lot, who are taking a lot more time to come back.
Ravi Kumar, you had a question.
Mr. Ramchandani, isn't the tech sector the real growth driver for commercial estate, office space?
Absolutely.
So if that is impacted and these people can work through the internet from even other towns, will the growth be the same as it was before?
Obviously, we saw a historic high in 2019 of 63 million square feet of absorption, which is a historic high. Obviously, you've got to keep in mind that India continues to be the global factory of the world. And I'm putting it crudely because that's the truth. Nobody will tell you that. We are the largest offshoring outsourcing hub. With the talent that we have in India, India will continue to be the offshoring hub of the world. Will continue to attract, but today, can you literally work in longer gestation periods from home? It's not practically possible. You will lose connect with the organization. You will lose connect with your teams. You will lose connect with the people you meet. So you will want flexibility, and obviously there is going to be a hybrid, and you probably would have heard that word, the word hybrid. But every company will calibrate what that really works for them now because of COVID. 1 year later, how that's going to react and change post-COVID. And COVID's not going away tomorrow. COVID will have some variation, some story over the next year. And the employees will demand additional elbow room. The offices will not just become locations of people going and sitting on their desk and doing work. The office dynamics will change. You'll see a lot more offices being created for collaboration, for meetings, for whiteboarding, for communicating, and not just delivering work out of your desk.
Will that impact tier 2 and tier 3 cities? Will they also grow? Because I feel those may grow more than the big cities now.
We've seen a growth in the tier 2 cities, but the scale is very small. We've been talking of tier 2, tier 3 cities for the last 2 decades. We've actually seen the growth of tier 2 cities only in the last 5-7 years. The growth of tier 2 cities will accelerate, but the percentage of tier 2, tier 3 cities is very, very tiny compared to the tier 1 cities. The top cities in India control 700 million square feet of office space. That's the investment grade office. If you look at the campuses that are owned by the TCSs, the Infosys of the world, that's another 300 million square feet across India. And if you
Susan
look
Marcus,
at,
you had a question, Susan.
so you will see growth in tier 2, tier 3, but the scale is going to be much smaller.
Yeah, Mr. Ram. So you spoke about how Bangalore was so attractive for the institutional investors. So one of the observations over the past few years is that we have lost out a lot, considerable investment to Hyderabad. So in the long term or in the next few years, how do you see between Bangalore and Hyderabad, which would be a more attractive investment for institutional developers?
Hyderabad, no doubt, is the second largest absorber for commercial office space in the country. Infrastructure is good and getting better. Clients will evaluate cities based on talent. Availability of talent is going to be a key. Quality of working environment and government that's very friendly and attracting investments. Karnataka, unfortunately, has pretty much rode on its own wave. There have been challenges with the government. We've had our own share of challenges of infrastructure. But the talent doesn't want to move on. They love the climate, they love the weather. We've attracted clients, people from not only other parts of the country, but expatriates who want to live in Bangalore compared to Hyderabad. That's changing. The demographics are changing. The clientele is looking at Hyderabad equally. And they will weigh their options on what businesses will go into Hyderabad, what businesses will come to Bangalore or Chennai or Pune or Mumbai, depending on the growth of the sector and availability of talent. And if you look at 30% of the tech force in the US are originally from Andhra. So the affinity to go back to their state also is there. And of course, if you go to California, you will see 80% in most American corporates today, or 70%, I would say, being Indian. And there are Indians who are from different parts of India. So you'll have clusters of people from Kerala, from Tamil Nadu, from Karnataka, from Andhra, from Pune, or from East India, and from North India. So you'll have clusters, and depending on organizations, we've seen larger clusters from some states. This has all happened during the dot-com boom, and it has continued.
Absolutely. Shivdev, you had a question. Shivdev, unmute, please.
Yeah. Good evening, Ram, and good insightful presentation. Thank you. I have one, I've always been biased on this growth of Bangalore in terms of, I think there's a sheer overdevelopment and it's a lopsided development in the state because cities like Mysore, Belgaum, Hubli, all of them are lost out. So there's a huge influx of people, as everybody knows, including Uber drivers who come from Gulbarga, Raichur, and are struggling to make a living. It's a pathetic living conditions they have, courtesy the so-called boom in Bangalore. And where's the infrastructure? I mean, there's no parking lots, there's no public parking spaces. Buildings are cropping up every nook and corner, and there's no parking. You park in a sensible place. The cops are towing away vehicles. And what about the water supply? You're bringing Kaveri water from some 80 kilometers. So where is the justification? You just said Hyderabad has better infrastructure. I wish, maybe it was utopia, which is now just a dream. It was more balanced development across the state rather than just putting everybody in Bangalore.
Unfortunately, that's the case with all the cities, right? All the states, their state capitals have seen growth. Similarly, with Hyderabad, you haven't seen growth in any other part of Telangana. Of course, it was Andhra once upon a time holistically. Of course, the government is trying to push and promote Vijayawada. Hasn't happened. Bangalore has the perfect opportunity to grow. Locations like Mysore, no doubt there has been some quantum of manufacturing that has moved to Hubli, Dharwad, etc. Trade is big. And Mysore connects to parts of Kerala and Tamil Nadu, so it can really grow as a hub. It's already a large hub and can grow further. But everyone will want to look at predominantly an urban center, one for opportunities of growth. And the problems that you mentioned, whether it's water, parking, that remains everywhere. You come to Delhi, you'll see that problem. You go to Mumbai, you'll see that problem. You go to Chennai, you'll see that problem. You go to any city in India, you'll find the same problems. It's unfortunate, but we hope state governments take a lot more cognizance of growing and urbanizing cities. And you'll be surprised, while Bangalore, because the scale and size of the city that's already reached, Hyderabad's going to get there. The infrastructure that's being put in Hyderabad is not going to be sufficient for what they're developing.
Sushila, get a question.
Thank you. Thanks, Ram. That was interesting. Specifically, you mentioned REITs as an avenue of investment. Would you be able to give us some pointers, some advice in terms of what to look for, what to avoid while investing in REITs?
Currently, there are only 3 REITs that are operational in India. One is the Embassy Blackstone REIT. The other one is the K. Raheja REIT. The third one is the Brookfield REIT. I can email some notes on REITs for you to review, and happy to guide you through. If you log on to, I'll send you the link so it'll be easier for you to review. REITs are basically investment vehicles where an institutional investor has bought out rental yielding assets and has listed it on a platform like the stock market. So basically you get to buy units, and those units give you dividends based on the rental income that those properties are producing. The returns are around 7% to 7.5%. And that's the kind of return that most of the REITs are giving today. Of course, there are international REITs, there are global REITs, but these are the 3 in India right now. We'll get probably 2 more that are going to get listed pretty soon.
And there were the property management mutual funds earlier, right? That used to do, again, investments in the real estate space.
You do have property management companies. You have insurance companies that invest in real estate. You have global developers who institutional developers like Ascendas. If you've seen ITPL in Whitefield, that's a Singaporean-based developer that set up an India business too. They had a partnership with Tata's. Now they 100% own it. It's owned by Temasek in Singapore that developed that park and they expand. So they have a REIT listed out of Singapore. 3 that are currently there are predominantly Blackstone with Embassy. You have K. Raheja with Blackstone again, and Brookfield as a standalone.
Thanks. That would be useful.
Yeah, sure. We'll send you the links. No worries.
One quick question, Ram. Even before the pandemic, we used to hear that the market in India was in Bangalore was kind of going down because of excess supply or demand in the residential property space. And then the pandemic came, the real estate market looked bad. Currently, even people are talking about tech probably going out of India at some point of time. There's been people are talking about it, maybe China gets it, and infrastructure not being good enough in India. So do you think we'll reach a stage where the possibility, the threat of excess supply or demand?
If you realize the reason for excess supply and demand is everyone thought they can be a real estate developer. So anyone who had a plot or bought a plot said, I can build ground plus 2, ground plus 3. I can get a Mestri and a contractor and he became a small-time developer, a medium-sized developer. It's only the larger developers who have focused on governance in terms of make sure the plans are accurate. There was no challenges in setting up setbacks. There were enough car parking provided. If you go to most of this, and depending on which part of the city everyone lives, if you go to any of the by-lanes in most cities, you find ground plus 3 buildings which will have an illegal floor, not enough parking. Obviously, that's the reason the government of India has set up RERA. That's the Real Estate Regulatory Board. So today, you have to go and get your plans approved through RERA. You're looking at proper plan sanctioning with proper setbacks. And obviously, the pandemic has, and obviously funding. Today, who gets funding? Unless you accrue your personal money and develop, you're pretty much borrowing money, because RERA has put a regulation that you can't just sell off plan. A lot of people would make a plan and go to their friends and saying, or their investors and saying, I'm building a building of 20 apartments, 30 apartments. Would you like to invest? The reason the government has set up is because a lot of developers who sold you an apartment on plan, took that money and finished his previous 2 projects and couldn't complete the project that he actually sold you.
Right.
And that's what created a problem. So RERA is a regulator that's really put in place to solve some of these challenges, to make sure there's a regulation around it. And today a developer can go to jail if he's not delivering the project because he's got RERA approval.
We'll take one last question. Shiv, you have a question?
Yeah, thanks, Vinod. Ram, I just wanted your perspective on the senior assisted living. Do you see the market for that growing in Bangalore?
Of course, anywhere in India, there is an opportunity. We have enough seniors. A lot of us and our friends and all of you would live with have parents or will eventually become old too, and would ideally want your kids to take care of you. But the reality of the world is changing. Big opportunity in India, already seeing a huge growth in multiple locations in India. Coimbatore is a big market, which has successfully delivered on some quality senior housing. There are assisted living opportunities in Bangalore, where the key question is, what's the real model that works? The US model is very different. You can't replicate it because you pretty much pay off your social security. So eventually at a certain age, you can go and live in a community that will take care of you. And the government is also taking care of you. Unfortunately, we don't have that in India. So it's either you buy into a community and you live through that, and your kids probably buy you a home, or you buy and invest in it. But there you will start seeing some regulation around it, and it's coming.
Okay.
Big, again, an opportunity, but it is coming.
Thank you.
Can we squeeze in one last question? Arvind, you had a question? Please unmute.
Thanks, Vinod, and thanks, Ram, for very enlightening messages to everyone. I have a very simple question from an investor's point of view in residential. Over the last 2 decades, or whatever the 3 decades, the growth of the residential apartments of different types, starting from 1 BHK to villas and villaments and all kinds of things. Whether it is from a small developer or a big reputed developer, one of the common complaints that one hears is that in spite of all the tall claims and what you call the advertisement that they show you, almost everyone finds some nasty surprises after they invest. Okay, that the developer or the builder is not really meeting certain government regulations, certain claims that they made in terms of the documentation, in terms of making your investments really safe. And there are a lot of anxious periods for everyone before they kind of settle down. So before actually investing anything, what would be some basic documents that one should look for to ensure that, okay, this is going to be a safe investment for me from a common layman point of view?
Sure. I think very importantly to understand whether the project is RERA approved. because that has the entire checklist that qualifies them to get a project approval. They've got the funding, they're not selling off plan. And the money that you pay as an investor is going into a specific bank account that is paying for the development of that project. So the number one thing is to check if the project is RERA approved. And again, there is a qualification for projects that are not necessarily need a RERA approval, which is dwelling units under 15. So under 15 apartments, if the building has only 15 apartments, the developer doesn't have to get a RERA approval. And obviously you need to look at track record of developer. You got to obviously analyze location. But today with RERA, and Karnataka RERA is very strict. Some of the cities, other parts of India, Maharashtra RERA is very strict. Developers have gone to jail. So RERA is the number one criteria because it has a whole checklist of whether the property is sanctioned, whether he's disclosing what is super built-up area and carpet area, because there's a whole definition and guideline for it.
Okay.
Thank you, Ram. Thank you very much. Surely we have a connoisseur on the subject of real estate today talking to us, and you have made at least 40 plus people wiser today. And I'm quite sure that many of them are going to reach out to the real estate agent tomorrow morning to see where they can put their money. Thank you so much, Ram. May I call upon Rotarian Ravi Kumar to propose the formal vote of thanks. Ravi, can you unmute and talk, please? Please unmute.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening, Mr. Ram Chandani. It was a very enlightening talk. I'm in the real estate business. I'm a developer, and I have my own viewpoints on some things like, for instance, we don't have an urban renewal authority, which I think all these cities must have. Secondly, the bylaws of the building bylaws apply only to big developers. They don't apply to the by-lanes, where total violation goes on. That impacts our market. It may not impact the big builders, but it impacts smaller builders like us. So these are things which have to be really thought out. Urban renewal authority, I feel, is a very important component of any city, because now they're doing this metro, they're pushing it into a very crowded space and destroying a lot. If they had an urban, even Singapore and all, I've seen big buildings being brought down to make way for something new. It doesn't happen here. All these villages, all these developed areas which we see are surrounded by undeveloped areas in Bangalore. Koramangala, you just go across, there'll be an old village which is completely violating all the bylaws in the book.
Absolutely.
So these are the things I as a builder have noticed, and it impacts us. Anyway, your speech was excellent, especially it gives us hope that it will develop beautifully. And of course, we have to, Hyderabad, I also feel that it will face problems after a few years, which Bangalore faced a few years ago. Infrastructure, which is the most important thing. That's why intensity of land use, if they increase, they don't have to spread very far. I feel that intensity of most countries don't use FSI for residential. They use density per acre. Only commercial buildings have FSI. I don't know why we are not adopting that norm. Because the size of the unit is dictated by the location and the marketability. It's not FSI only, which is. So these are these things. Thank you very much. You gave us a very broad picture of the real estate market, including warehousing, industrial, and assisted living, senior citizens. Thank you very much, and good night.
Thank you.
A big round of applause for Ram Chandani for a wonderful talk today. Thank you so much for joining us. Wonderful. With this, I adjourn today's meeting. Thank you all.
Thank you. Have a good evening.